Ma'am, can you hold up a second? Don't run that through yet.
Sure. Is there a problem?
I need to verify something on the last item that rang up and the card that was used. Just keep the transaction open for me.
This one? It's just a box of cereal. I'm not sure what you're looking for.
I know. Just hang on.
There is a special kind of vulnerability that comes with working an hourly job. You are not hidden behind an office door. You are visible. You are standing in uniform, on someone else's schedule, doing work that can be interrupted at any moment by anyone who thinks they have power over you. And on the morning of July 9th, 2025, that vulnerability became a nightmare for two. 8-year-old Destiny Carter, a black cashier working the early shift at a busy Target store outside Detroit, Michigan. It was supposed to be an ordinary summer morning. Customers moved in and out through the sliding glass doors. Carts rattled across the tile floor, and Destiny stood at Register 5 doing exactly what she had done hundreds of times before, scanning items, greeting customers, and keeping the line moving with the calm efficiency her managers trusted. She had worked there for nearly 4 years. She wore a red polo, khaki pants, a name tag that read Destiny, and an employee badge clipped to her belt. She looked exactly like what she was, a hard-working American employee in the middle of her shift. But in less than 3 minutes, 2 ICE agents would walk through those front doors, point at her in front of customers, and turn an ordinary workday into the beginning of an $8.4 million legal disaster. At 10:12 a.m., the store's surveillance cameras recorded 2 unfamiliar figures walking through the sliding glass doors. They weren't carrying shopping carts, and they weren't looking at products. They moved slowly through the entrance area, scanning faces instead of shelves. One of them was a tall man in his early 40s, wearing a tactical vest with bold white letters across the chest. ICE. The woman beside him, younger and quieter, wore the same badge hanging from a lanyard around her neck. The cameras showed them pausing near the entrance for a moment, looking down at a phone screen as if comparing faces with a photo or description. Then they began walking toward the front registers. Destiny was still doing what she always did, greeting customers with a small smile and scanning items across the register. An elderly woman stood in front of her, carefully handing over a stack of coupons while Destiny bagged groceries and made polite conversation about the weather. Everything looked completely normal, but as soon as the transaction finished and the receipt printed, the tall agent stepped forward beside the counter. He waited just long enough for the customer to take her bags. Then he leaned slightly toward Destiny and spoke in a firm, controlled voice. "Ma'am," he said, flashing his badge, "we need you to step away from the register." Immigration and Customs Enforcement. For a brief second, Destiny thought he had to be joking. She looked down at the badge, then back up at the man standing beside her register. Customers in the next line began turning their heads, sensing that something unusual was happening. "I'm sorry," Destiny said slowly, still holding the barcode scanner in her hand. "I'm working. What is this about?" The agent's expression didn't soften. "We have information that someone here may be working without proper authorization," he said. "We need to verify your immigration status." The words hung in the air for a moment, heavy and confusing. Destiny blinked, clearly stunned. "My immigration status?" she repeated. "I'm American. I was born here." She gestured toward her name tag and the red Target shirt she was wearing. "I'm literally standing at my job." The second agent stood quietly behind him, watching the growing line of customers that had begun to form. A young mother holding a toddler in her cart shifted uncomfortably. Another customer slowly pulled out a phone. Destiny tried again, keeping her voice calm. "My manager has all my employment paperwork, my I-9, my ID, everything. Can this wait until my shift is over?" The agent shook his head. "No, ma'am. You need to step away from the register right now." Destiny felt the tension in the air immediately. The line behind her register had grown quiet, the normal buzz of checkout conversations suddenly replaced by curious whispers. She set the scanner down slowly and looked directly at the agent. "I'm not leaving my register in the middle of my shift," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "If there's a problem, you can speak with my manager." She pointed toward the customer service desk a few yards away, where her supervisor was helping another customer with a return. The agent's tone hardened. Ma'am, I'm not asking again. Step away from the register. That was the moment Ashley Rodriguez noticed the commotion. She had been working behind the service counter when she saw several customers staring toward Register 5. Within seconds, she walked over, her expression already concerned. "Excuse me," Ashley said firmly, stepping beside Destiny. "Is there a problem here?" The tall agent turned toward her and lifted his badge again. "Immigration and Customs Enforcement," he said. "We're detaining this employee for immigration verification." Ashley looked at Destiny, then back at the agent, clearly confused. "Detaining her?" she said. "She's been working here for 4 years." Ashley's confusion quickly turned into concern. She looked at Destiny, who was still standing behind the register, then back at the agent. "Destiny has worked here for years," Ashley said calmly. "Her employment paperwork is already verified. We have her I-9, her Social Security documentation, everything required by law." The agent didn't seem interested. "That's not the issue," he replied. "We received information that someone here may not be authorized to work. We need her to step away with us now." Ashley shook her head slightly. "Do you have a warrant?" The question caught the agent off guard for a moment. "We don't need a warrant for immigration enforcement," he said. Ashley crossed her arms and stood her ground. "This is a private business," she replied. "And you're asking my employee to leave the floor in the middle of her shift." Around them, customers had begun openly recording with their phones. A few employees from nearby registers glanced over nervously. Destiny remained silent, but her hands had started to tremble. The agent took a step closer to the counter. "Ma'am," he said sharply, "if she refuses to cooperate, we will detain her." Just then, another voice came from behind the crowd. The store's general manager had arrived. David Chen, the store's general manager, walked quickly toward the front registers after hearing the raised voices. He had spent years managing busy retail floors, and one glance told him this situation was already spiraling. Customers were standing still instead of checking out. Phones were pointed toward the counter, and 2 federal agents were confronting one of his employees during a shift. "What's going on here?" David asked calmly as he stepped beside Ashley. The tall agent immediately showed his badge again. "Immigration and Customs Enforcement," he said. "We're detaining this employee to verify her immigration status." David looked at Destiny, still wearing her red uniform and name tag, then back at the agent. "She's one of my cashiers," he said. "Her employment eligibility was verified when we hired her." The agent folded his arms. "We received a tip. She needs to come with us." David nodded slowly, choosing his words carefully. "Do you have a judicial warrant for her detention?" The agent hesitated for a second. "No." David's expression hardened. "Then you're not removing my employee from this store." The tension at the front of the store was now impossible to ignore. Nearly every register had slowed as customers turned to watch the confrontation. Some were whispering. Others were openly recording. The tall agent's patience was clearly fading. "Sir," he said sharply to David, "we have federal authority to conduct immigration enforcement." David didn't raise his voice, but he didn't step aside either. "And I have the responsibility to protect my employees and my business," he replied. "Without a judicial warrant, you cannot remove one of my workers from private property during her shift." The second agent shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the growing crowd. Destiny remained behind the counter, her heart pounding as dozens of strangers watched the situation unfold. The tall agent turned toward her again. "Ma'am, this is your final warning. Step away from the register or we will place you under arrest." A ripple of shock moved through the line of customers. Destiny swallowed hard but kept her voice steady. "Arrest me for what?" she asked. "For working my job?" Just then, the sound of police radios crackled near the entrance. Local officers had arrived. 2 Ann Arbor police officers stepped through the front doors, their presence immediately shifting the atmosphere inside the store. The quiet tension among the customers turned into a wave of murmurs as people moved aside to make room. The senior officer, Sergeant James O'Brien, approached the front registers and quickly assessed the scene. 2 federal agents, a cashier behind the counter, and a growing crowd of witnesses holding up their phones. "All right," he said firmly. "What's going on here?" The ICE agent spoke first. "We're conducting an immigration detention," he said, gesturing toward Destiny. O'Brien glanced at her uniform, her name tag, and the register still full of items waiting to be scanned. Then he asked the same question the manager had asked minutes earlier. "Do you have a judicial warrant for her arrest?" The agent's jaw tightened. "No." But O'Brien raised a hand. "Then you don't have authority to remove her from this business." The store fell silent for a moment. The officer's voice stayed calm but unmistakably firm. "The manager has asked you to leave. Without a warrant, you're creating a disturbance on private property." For several long seconds, no one moved. The tall, icy agent looked from the police officer to the store manager, clearly weighing his options. Around them, the quiet hum of the store had completely stopped. Customers stood frozen beside their carts, phones still raised, waiting to see what would happen next. Finally, the agent exhaled sharply. "This isn't over," he muttered. Sergeant O'Brien didn't flinch. "It is for today," he replied, "unless you return with a judicial warrant." The second agent gave a brief glance toward the growing crowd, clearly aware that dozens of cameras had captured everything. Without another word, the two agents turned and began walking toward the front doors. The automatic doors slid open, and within seconds they were gone. The tension inside the store released all at once. Conversations erupted. Several customers clapped softly. Destiny stood frozen behind the register, her hands trembling now that the confrontation was finally over. Ashley gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Let's get you to the break room," she said quietly. But the story of what had just happened inside that Target store was only beginning. Within hours, the videos recorded by customers inside the store began spreading across social media. The clips showed everything: a cashier in a red Target uniform being confronted at a register, customers watching in disbelief, and a store manager standing between federal agents and his employee, asking one simple question: "Do you have a warrant?" By that evening, the footage had been viewed hundreds of thousands of times. By the next morning, it was trending across Michigan under one hashtag, #JusticeForDestiny. News outlets began contacting the store, asking for statements. Target's corporate office quickly confirmed that Destiny had passed every employment verification required by law, including federal I-9 documentation and E-Verify screening when she was hired. But the public reaction had already moved beyond the store itself. Many people watching the videos were asking the same question: how could federal agents walk into a workplace, point at a random employee, and threaten arrest without proof of anything? Within 3 weeks, Destiny had hired a civil rights attorney, and on July 2, 2025, a federal lawsuit was officially filed seeking $8.4 million in damages. As the case moved forward, the discovery process began revealing details that made the incident even more troubling. Under oath, the lead agent was asked a simple question by Destiny's attorney: "What evidence did you have that Miss Carter was undocumented?" The answer was vague. The agent admitted the investigation had started with an anonymous tip claiming that a worker inside the store might not be authorized to work in the United States. There had been no name, no employee ID, no confirmed identity. Just a description that read, "female, in her 20s, black." The attorney pressed further. "Did you check employment records before approaching her?" "No." "Did you contact the company's HR department?" "No." "Did you verify the claim in any government database?" Again, no. The courtroom transcript showed the uncomfortable silence that followed, because the truth was becoming clear to everyone involved. A woman had been threatened with detention in the middle of her shift based on nothing more than a vague tip and a visual assumption. And with multiple camera angles documenting the entire incident, the case against the agents was becoming extremely difficult to defend. The pressure to settle began building quickly. By early November 2025, the legal pressure on the government had become impossible to ignore. The surveillance footage, the witness videos, and the sworn depositions had created a timeline that was painfully clear. A cashier had been threatened with arrest in the middle of her shift without a warrant, without verified evidence, and in full view of customers. Rather than risk a public trial, federal attorneys moved toward settlement. On November 12th, The agreement was finalized. Destiny Carter would receive $8.4 million, $2.4 million in compensatory damages for emotional distress and violation of her rights, and $6 million in punitive damages meant to send a message about abuse of authority. The lead agent was suspended and ordered to complete additional training on workplace enforcement procedures. But the larger impact reached far beyond one store in Michigan. Major retailers across the country began updating their policies, requiring law enforcement to present judicial warrants before approaching employees on the job. For Destiny, the money helped her finish college and start a new chapter of her life. But the lesson from that morning remained simple and powerful. Sometimes, justice begins with a worker refusing to leave her register and a manager asking one question that changes everything. Do you have a warrant?